I'll just say a few words before I invite the audience for question and answers. First of all, I wish to thank Dr. Masuma Hasan for inviting youngsters to this conference. I think if you excluded these youngsters, other than a few ladies, the average age would be around 65 or more. And but I think it's very nice to have the youngsters. And as a matter of fact, I'm essentially addressing those youngsters right now to begin with, especially with regard to the first two presentations, because they already have made a very explicit description of the way things are and how things are being utilized and what can be done to defend ourselves against these things. And you must always remember and you must always know that whatever we do in defense of whatever these cyber threats are or whatever these disruptive technologies are or whatever these things which can threaten our system is, these will always be outpaced by the development. So the defense will always lag behind in some ways. So you have to be very careful. So there are a lot of terms that are used in this context of technology and data and everything, like information, misinformation, cyber attacks, nexus between cyber attacks and disinformation, AI, artificial intelligence, IoT, Internet of Things, big data, and multiple others. The other day, I was addressing a bunch of youngsters, and I told them that I consider myself very lucky to be that old, and I know that I won't be around maybe for a few years at best or more. And all of these things do not frighten me. They do not scare me. I'm not really worried about them. I can take advantage of some of these things, and I can sit and use my iPhone. I can talk to my kids on the WhatsApp or Facebook or whatever. But the real challenge is going to be faced by the youngsters who have to live through this technology, who have to learn through the art of living through this technology, and only then they can develop, only then they can be master of themselves, and then only then they can be master of situation. So it's a challenge for them to grow up. And just to give one example, I can tell you that about 15 years ago, and how this internet and how this computer and how this AI is affecting our system. About 15 years ago, somebody plotted a list of countries, list of multinational organizations, the 10 biggest ones. And there were only two computer and IT related in them. If I recall correctly, one was IBM and the other was Microsoft. So it was not drawn like in 1930 when there was no Microsoft. And in 15 years' time, if you draw the same list, the 10 largest companies of the world, 8 are IT related and only 2 are non-IT related. So this is the rate at which things are progressing. And this is the rate at which our young people have to advance, have to cope up, have to learn things. The other thing, sometimes we also talk about quantum technology. Of course, there are various technologies that are still being talked about, and they're not very in it. They're not very popular yet, or they're not being used yet, like quantum encryption and all those things. Naturally, there's a need to learn about these things as well. But as far as safe transmission of data is concerned, I think the only way to do is the way the Graham Bell did it, that is you hardwire things. If you do not hardwire things, there can always be a leakage, and you have to defend yourself against this. And what is the importance of this data, which was also talked about by our two speakers? That is, WhatsApp, as all of you know, doesn't give you any commercials. It does not show you any commercials. There is no disruption. There are no star, no nothing. And yet it was sold for 13, I don't remember exactly, but something like $13 billion to Facebook. Facebook bought it. And you know what? With the advent of this AI and with the entire the requirement of this data, they will not sell it for $100 billion. It is so important to have all this data with you and exploit this data and make use of this data, that this is what you have to realize, how things change and how things develop these days. And as far as the other issue of international law and UN, there was also a lot of talk about it. I think it's very clear, and was also pointed out by our keynote speaker this morning, that your foreign policy lies in your economic strength, in your own internal strength. If you don't have that, it doesn't matter. See, the thing is that unless you're strong enough, it's not so easy to get justice. There are international laws and there's United Nations. And maybe I can tell you a little saying which Ahmad Shah Bukhari, Fatas Bukhari, who was representative to the UN in 1950s, he said that, and that was immediately after the League of Nations had finished. He said that if two small countries fight, the role of the United Nations is to make sure that the issue is resolved. And if a big country and a small country have a dispute, the role of the United Nations is to somehow suppress the smaller country and give the right to the bigger country. And if two bigger countries have a dispute, the United Nations ceases to exist, is no more effective. So this is what he said, and this is, why League of Nations was dissolved, and this is why this veto was invented, and it will always remain there. With these few words, I just come to the third topic, which actually is more closer to my heart. This is where I have spent my entire lifetime, as a matter of fact, nuclear. I think it was a very good and a very comprehensive presentation. But let me also state this thing, that as far as nuclear threat and as far as coping with it is concerned, there are many conventions, treaties, and cartels, and I think the audience, a lot of the audience must always know that, like NPT, Non-Proliferation Treaty, NSG, Nuclear Suppliers Group, CTBT, Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, IAEA safeguards to make sure that there is no proliferation in the civil nuclear power plants, and START, Strategic Arm Reduction Treaty, that used to take place between Soviet Union and United States, SALT, Soviet Strategic Arms Limitation Talks, which are still held, GICNT, Global Initiative Combat Nuclear Terrorism, and NTI, Nuclear Threat Initiative. So there are a lot of these things which are taking place, which are happening, and Pakistan, of course, is either a member of that or is being kept from becoming a member of that. But Pakistan is playing a very important role in here. But just one point that I want to add here, and it's not really an official business. There are several things happening. There are various turmoils happening in this world, military concentration and threats like climate change, pandemics, environmental degradation, diminishing resources, uneven resource distribution, uneven economic conditions in different countries, and now even disruptive technologies, and which threaten the civilization, which threaten our lifestyle, which affect the way we think and we live. Where does the nuclear come in here, except for a threat? It's really not making any difference, and if any, as a matter of fact, as far as nuclear is concerned, there was a First World War and a Second World War. After nuclear, there has been no World War, because everyone knows the consequences of it, whether it's a strategic weapon or tactical weapon or whatever, everyone knows the consequence of using it, that'll be the end of everything. So in a number of ways, yes, you have to be very careful, but then at the same time, there can also be some very simple, but at the end of the day, once again, I'll go back to the young one and say, you have to work hard, you have to be very vigilant, and you have to see what the things that are changing place, and you should be ready to play a part or a role in it. When we were young, we did not know what is written in the books in the US, in the US universities, what they are doing, when we were your age or younger. Now, you are as good as an American student, or a Russian student, or as an European student. Whatever information and knowledge he has access to, you also have access. And if you do not utilize this knowledge, and if you not utilize this access, definitely you will be left far behind. With these few words, I thank you all, and now I'm open for questions and answers. Please identify yourself, and please do not make any comments. I already have made a lot of comments. Just ask the simple question. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Safa, and I've recently just graduated from the University of Toronto in Political Science and Environmental Management. I have a question for the panel. Could you please elaborate on the significance of both hard power and soft power utilized by Russia in the context of the Ukrainian conflict?
Thank you so much. It's a difficult question. Because it's about terminology, and I don't think that we have a lot of time to discuss terminology right now. The problem is that the crisis started earlier, and it had both military and non-military aspects. And non-military aspects were based on the fact that we had the same language and the same culture and the same history. But the problem is that the sides couldn't find a political solution to their disagreements, and then the idea was to use a military tool, but at the same time, it was considered at the beginning of special military operation as just a push. After that, we would be back to political culture and soft power solutions between Russia and Ukraine. But the situation developed very differently, and that is why we are stuck in military. I hope that probably sooner rather than later we would be back to soft power conversations. And this is my last point. As for many countries, for instance, such as Afghanistan and such as this conflict between Russia and Ukraine, from the beginning, my position was that solution can be found only between Russia and Ukraine, not between Russia and the West. Despite the fact that the official line of Russia is that this is conflict not only with Ukraine, but with the West and with NATO. But for me, the shortest way to the peace would be through the conversation between Russia and Ukraine. Thank you so much.
Respected Speaker, Dr. Peter, I know you are the very frank and versatile type of speaking, and your vision. Mr. Speaker, Dr. Peter, good to know, though, very interesting. You are a versatile type of speaker, speaking in language, versatile. Urdu Gawaris, Yoznai Urdu Gawaris as well. Native, your language is Russian. Sir, my question is concerned about that, the turmoil world. It is any interlink between the conflict in Gaza and Israel as well as behind the American is behind. And your conflict is going on to Ukraine. Ukraine support of all the Western Europe and especially America. Has this turmoil interlinked between them and is magnify the war, or as far as what is the role of artificial intelligence or artificial nuclear has become a nuclear war? Any possibility in the future? Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. To answer your previous question, probably I would have a reference to the previous panel with a great presentation on international law, because it's a good demonstration that, unfortunately, international law and international institutions are not efficient enough to prevent such developments. And even worse, they are not so efficient in finding solution and stopping violence. Probably I would respond in this way. As for artificial intelligence, yes, there were conversations about autonomous nuclear command and control as a part of the Russian nuclear command and control. Its title is Perimeter. However, it's difficult to judge and to assess and to understand what is the risk, because the official line is that the human is in the loop, and always humans, operators, and chief commander, and who is Vladimir Putin, is in charge of nuclear decisions. But it's reasonable thing, and in Pakistan as well. Nuclear command and control is the most classified part of the nuclear complex. That is why we have to follow this official line, and that is why it's very difficult to assess. But last point is, during this crisis, the Russian leadership demonstrated very clearly, despite all these journalist statements about eliminating some European capitals, I referred in my presentation. But the Russian leadership demonstrated that this crisis doesn't have a nuclear dimension. It's a very good point that the Russian leadership doesn't consider use nuclear weapons in the context of this situation. And this is exactly what we discussed at the beginning of the Today conference, the political will. And the political will is very clear right now, not to bring nuclear weapons as a solution to this confrontation. Thank you.
We can have two more questions, and preferably to the other two speakers. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Again, this is a question that I give to the entire panel. Forgive me for being naive if I'm asking something along these lines, but I want to discuss nuclear thresholds and look at the cyber realm as well. Have we reached a point, has cyber offensive weapons become so potent that they could ever trigger a nuclear response? Is this something that we should be worried about in the coming future, looking at the potency of these weapons to anyone?
Thank you so much. I hope that my co-panelist would take it.
Because he said nuclear. So
Yes, yes, the nuclear world.
it overrides anything.
It depends, and in some countries, in some nations, there is a doctrinal confirmation. For instance, the United States, in the nuclear posture authorized by the Obama administration, clearly indicated that among possible scenarios when the United States would consider use of nuclear deterrence would be the cyber attack. And because the United States is heavily dependent on cyber and information infrastructure, that a significant attack may destroy a lot of lives. So that's why it's a reasonable response. But also, for instance, in the Russian nuclear doctrine, there is no mention of cyber, but in the same time, the line is that if the existence of the Russian state is under risk, Russia would consider use of nuclear deterrence. And we have now, with the more and more involvement of informational technologies, we have more and more scenarios how to affect survivability of state in the cyber area. And so it opens a lot of scenarios how a nation could respond. But the key question is attribution of these attacks.
If we recall about Stuxnet, that Iran facility has been compromised due to a small utility or software that was residing since last 3 years, and then it went to the facility, nuclear facility, and exploited the zone. But in case of Pakistan, we are in secure hands. We are very safe, and we are not using internet connected devices that can exploit, or any other malicious code that can exploit our resources. So that's from my side.
If you have a look to my slides, the dynamics of war has been changed. Now we are in the era of cyber war. And all these atomic weapons will be useless, because now, as you know about the drones, they have taken the place of all those military aircraft like F-16 and all those things. And similarly, we will have robots who will fight instead of our soldiers. So the cyber warfare and the cyber security over there will be provided to those robots, because they will work on instructions. And if anyone can hack, look at this, the war will be to hack your robots, your drones, and use them against yours. And you know the story of Porus ke Hati. So they actually use those elephants against their own forces. So the new cyber war will be like that. And I don't think so that there will be need of atomic warhead, because it will destroy each and everything without any discrimination. And that's why we need intelligent war, that you know that you should have something to rule later on if you win the war. Thank you.
I have a very specific question for Dr. Peter. My name is Abbas Nanji. I'm a member of this institute. And the question is related to strategic nuclear weapons, and specifically the first preemptive nuclear strike related issue. President Putin has specifically very strongly has said that we are ready for nuclear war. In a recent interview, I think happened about a week back, A lot of Western countries, they feel that he is bluffing. I personally feel that he is very serious. Dr. Peter, what is your take on this?
Thank you so much. I think that Russia's president's position is, in this context, in this regard, is quite balanced. Because I do remember a lot of conversations, including interviews, and some of Russian experts, they were very proactive that we should have a preemptive strike, and we should threaten Europe to step back from this confrontation and so on. And he responded very clearly that our doctrine is simple and it has a clear message that we would use nuclear weapons only in an extreme situation. So from this point of view, yes, Russia is ready, but not in terms that Russia wants this nuclear confrontation, because it would affect everybody, including in global south. But Russia technically is ready. And it's very clear, and it's very relevant for Pakistan as well. Pakistan has a robust and efficient nuclear deterrence against India. India has the same argument. The same is relevant about the United States, France, and the United Kingdom. So from this point of view, again, this is the line between technical readiness and political will. But as for now, I can see that political will, and he mentioned this as well, and he mentioned that during his visit to Beijing, that Russia is interested to resume somehow a dialogue on strategic issues, because we have a lot of problems in this area that we got in the absence of a substantial dialogue on strategic weapons with the United States and other Western countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that brings this session to conclusion. I thank the speakers very much, and I think I must also appreciate myself. We finished this on time. Thank you.